My name is Dāli Rivera. I'm the founder of Dāli Talks LLC. And I created the Legislator Outreach Power Hour because I encourage people to use the power of their voice. And one of the ways that you can do that is by reaching out to all of your representatives down to your PTA board at your kid's school, all the way up to the White House and actually and beyond. So what you're going to hear about today is why you should contact legislators. We're going to learn how to craft an impactful message. We're going to also learn about the type of requests that you can produce and also best practices for advocacy. This is really important because you want to get your message across very clear and concisely in a powerful way. And then we're going to talk about post outreach, what to do after you've written these people and that way you feel like you've done something and it's not just a one-time thing. So we're going to talk about why contacting the legislators. Um, there's so many reasons, but it's pretty much to advocate for or against any bill, anything as difficult as reform for healthcare or maybe an anti-bullying law that is being passed. We're going to also do it because we want to raise awareness about important issues, and there's a lot going on right now in the nation. So any issue that you want to voice, regardless of what it is, you can write any of these people holding political offices and not just express how you feel about it, but what you let them know what you would like to see done. You can also address community issues, influence budget decisions and funding. I know that Social Security is on the line, school budgets, Department of Education, all sorts of things are on the line right now. You can request assistance with government services. And this one, oh, I love the most because that is how I learned that the offices of these politicians is really powerful when you request help from them. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later on. You can also contact them to participate in the legislative process. Like a lot of offices have roundtable meetings where you can voice your opinion and suggestions. You can contact them to express, that you want to protect rights and promote social change, or that you want them to do that for you and for your community, and to also show appreciation and build relationships. And that one is really important because a lot of people always think about the ask for this or complain for that, and never about, hey, thank you for doing this. It's really nice to let them know what it is that you appreciate and what you like that they're doing, because they're also, when it comes down to it, they're not just politicians, they're a human being. And so keep that in mind. A lot of them have really good intentions and they get into this because they want to help. Okay, so Amy, welcome. Let's see. I see that she just came in. So we're going to talk about how to craft the message. And I'm doing this pretty short and simple. I'm not going to overwhelm you, but we're going to talk about using a clear subject line. Like, for example, opposing Bill 134 to protect women's healthcare. That was just an example that I gave. But be very concise and personal. Sometimes the personal stories are used on the floor, believe it or not. Well, I'm pretty sure that you've seen it. Like today, there's a State of the Union address, I believe, and a lot of times these politicians will bring in, people from, anywhere in the country and use their story because they've written in and they became aware of that story that can help persuade other Congress people to vote yes or no for certain bills. Um, so it's important to be very concise and personal and explain why this is important to you, whatever the matter is. And you also want to request a specific action. So I urge you to vote against Bill 123, anti-bullying and cybersecurity, for minors, whatever it is. And then later you follow up if you do not receive a response. And normally responses, what I've noticed with my experience, right? When I write in, which is most of the times that's what I do actually. I write in when I need somebody to help me with a certain department in the government. And the response comes within 2 weeks. Calls are different. Most of the times you get a call, you call and a staffer or an aide will pick up the phone. You express what you want to say to them, and they write it down. And one of the things that I've learned is that they always kind of like keep a tally of how many people call per issue. They actually have to jot it down, which must be exhausting, especially right now because they're getting tons and tons of calls. And even if you call and nobody picks up the phone, they have voicemail boxes. And I encourage you to leave a message. And that's why you want your message to be almost like an elevator pitch, really short and sweet, to leave it on there because they're listening to these all day long. They're writing them down, they're keeping track of all of that. And the clearer and more concise, the better. Um, so I'm going to give you an example. Here's a really, really short one. Um, Dear legislator, let's say like Martin O'Malley, who's not in office anymore, but it's like, I'm a constituent in Aberdeen, Maryland, where I am, writing to express my strong opposition to Bill 123, keep kids safe online. Uh, this bill and then explain the impact. This bill would protect kids from sexual exploitation, cyberbullying, and the illegal collection of minors' information. As a parent and a business owner, I'm deeply concerned about so many children who are being exploited online, that leaves them with a lot of mental health issues and trauma. I urge you to oppose this bill or to support it, um, and support policies that would help keep kids safe. Please let me know where you stand on this issue. Thank you for your time, and then your signature. So this is just a really, really short one. And that's something that you can say. Now, a letter can be a little more, expansive. I like to give short stories when I write in, especially like the example that I just used right now about bullying, right? I actually use stories like, for example, a friend of mine called me. Her son had been chatting with a young lady for about 6 months. And then one night, her son, who's 16 years old, bursts into her room asking for $100. And he was very frantic about it. And come to find out, it was because this girl had asked him for a nude. He finally gave in, sent it in. And as soon as the supposed young lady got it, um, it was revealed that it was actually not a real person. I mean, a real young girl. This person was a man who was exploiting boys and was threatening that if he didn't get $100, he would, post the pictures all over the place. So I would use a story. I would write it as concise as possible. I encourage you to use ChatGPT if you need to to write more concisely, but also to not lose the meaning and the highlights of your story. And I know that a lot of people might struggle with writing, so don't be afraid to use ChatGPT, or at least to have somebody review what you're writing. The point is to send in a message. If it's something personal to you, share that personal story, and just send it in. So let's talk about contact methods, because I've mentioned writing and calling in. You can email, and you can email directly from your email, but you can also go to their websites. On the Contact Me page, you will always see their information there. You will not be able to see their email on the top. Sometimes they don't have it on that page, but for the most part, you can find it somewhere on their on their website. And then it'll ask you questions, and you can make it brief. Like the questions that it'll ask you will be like, what is this pertaining to? And it'll show you, like Veterans Affairs or Social Security, infrastructure, national security. It'll break it down by topic because they're trying to keep track of how many messages come in about, different concerns. And then you can go ahead and paste your message on there. I always use a note or a Google Docs to um, write my message first, and then I just copy it and paste it onto their website if I do that there, or into my email. You can also do it the old school way, USPS, just write it, print it out, make sure you sign it, a wet signature, and then mail it in. Um, you do get responses, believe me, I've done it. Fax, same thing. You can fax it in. And remember, when you send in information like that, never include PII, personal identifiable information, such as your social security number, um, your like just things that could be used to possibly commit identity fraud. Now, when you request help through any legislator or any political office, they will have you fill out a privacy release statement and kind of like a temporary power of attorney. And that is because if you ask them to help you with a certain department, they're going to need that from you because that way they can legally speak on your behalf or inquire on your behalf. When you submit these inquiries, they're only requesting for answers. They're not telling anyone to do this or that about your case. So please keep that in mind. But back to the contact methods, you can fax it in and then you go through the webpage, or you can actually walk in. They all have offices in your state, sometimes in several cities, depending on how large your state is, they'll try to have an office in different regions. But you can also go straight into the Hart Building in Washington, D.C. There are tons and tons of offices in there. It's crazy. I've been in there, believe me. It's like you can get overwhelmed, but people can actually walk in and you go to the front desk. You can request an appointment, and of course, most of the times they'll be very, very busy. But if you happen to bump into them, know that they will give you maybe 1 minute because they're always running to a meeting or running to the floor because they got to vote on something or hear something. So this is when that elevator pitch is really, really important to have. Make sure that you attract their attention, and don't be afraid to give them your business card and tell them, please give me a call. I'd like to further discuss this further because that might be a matter that they're actually interested in. I also want to point out that there's an amazing app called the 5 Calls app, where you can create a free membership and it gives you scripts. And I've actually created some scripts for you all. I'll be emailing these to you. If you enter your email on the chat, I can send it to you. But it provides scripts so that you can call. And then some people do this as a daily thing because they like to do 5 calls every single day. And they have scripts for different things. So check that out if you feel comfortable for it. And it's very quick, very quick. Like, the whole concept is make it quick, clear, and simple, and move on. Call about the other topic that you're interested in voicing your opinion in. And then I posted some links where you can find out who your elected officials are. So you have the first one is usa.gov/elective-officials. That's for all, like senators, congressmen. Then it breaks it down to just your Congress people and then the senators. And I'm gonna stop sharing just for a moment because I want to see if We have some, I know that we have at least one person live. Amy, hi. Do you have any questions, Amy?
I don't really. I'm always looking for a clearer way to do that. There are so many different everyone's saying do this, do this, do this, and just like there's no way to do it all. And so like what's the best way to just like straightforward?
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I'm giving so many different you know, ideas of how you can do it because some people prefer calling, some people don't like the phone, so they'd rather write it in or mail it in. So, and that's fine. But so I want to share just a story of how I got started. When I was in the military, I was 19 years old and I just, no, I was 20 because I had just gotten married. And yeah, I was going from a single soldier to a married soldier. Then the policy is you can't live in the barracks if you're married. However, at the time, my husband was on a different military installation. And because of that, the basic allowance for housing was not approved. So I was kind of like, well, okay, I'll get out of the barracks, but I need to pay for housing. And usually the military will give married couples a home or the money to rent a home, either on the base or off the base. And I was at Fort Irwin, and Fort Irwin is out in the middle of nowhere. And so the nearest town was 45 minutes away. And I was also a little E4, so like I didn't even make that much money. And I remember I requested for this basic allowance for housing, and it was denied like three times. And the
Mhm.
garrison commander, who's kind of like the mayor of the entire military installation, denied it. So I felt stuck. And I don't even remember how I came up with this idea to write Senator Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein from California, because that's where I was from. And I wrote, and within 2 weeks, Barbara Boxer not only sent me a response, but she sent me a copy of the letter she sent to the garrison commander requesting, well, demanding that I be paid because according to this regulation, I was supposed to be either provided housing or like what they call bachelorette housing for people who are either getting divorced or just don't have their spouse on the installation, or keep me in the barracks, or just pay for me to pay for some rent, somewhere. And um, because she wrote the garrison commander, it was immediately approved, but HR took like months for me to actually get my money. so so that was the downfall of that. But had it not been for her, I got back pay and everything, but those months waiting was rough. And
Right.
at the time, I was also like towards the end of my first enlistment. So they were trying to get me to renew my contract. And at the time I was like, no, you can't even take care of me. So I ended up leaving active duty, those, because I was done with those 3 years. I went straight into the National Guard at Fort Hood, where my husband was, and then I went back active. It was a different experience the second time around, but that's how I got started, and that's how you can request assistance for a personal issue with departments. And I have also had the experience of doing that. Oh my gosh, over 100 times with um, with different issues. Like, for example, when I got out of the military in 2007, I had my second baby right after I got out, and the market was crashing. And when you're in the military, you kind of live in a bubble and you don't really understand how bad the situation is until you're in it. So I thought, I'm just gonna have my baby, spend 3 or 6 months at home connecting with my baby, and then get a job. Because I got out, I had, I was an E6, so I had, good amount of rank, so I had experience. I did 10 years, so I figured it would be easier to get a job. I was so wrong because the market was just crazy and people are getting laid off. And then months went by, I found myself in foreclosure, emptied out all of my savings with this
Mm.
new baby. And my husband's a veteran too. At the time, he was having a lot of health issues, couldn't work. And actually, he was in the real estate business. So, of course, that ended because, the
Right.
market was, nobody was buying houses. And I actually wrote everybody I could think of, including then President Obama, Vice President Biden, their wives, the Speaker of the House, everybody I could think of, down to like my mayor, city council,
Mhm.
just anybody I could think of. And I requested for help because my home loan company, my mortgage lender, was not moving along with the request for a modification. And thank goodness that I did. My neighbors, they walked away from their homes because they were in the same situation. They had lost jobs and stuff. They walked away. They lost their homes, like almost the whole uh, row of homes here on my street. They just
Gosh.
had some sort of horrible experience because a lot of us were military, a lot of them were contractors. So luckily for me, though, I I ended up getting a letter from Obama's office saying that they were going to help, that they had reached out my to my lender. And within a matter of weeks, my lender sent a home modification agreement, an offer. And to this
Mhm.
day, I have this house, 18 years with this house. It was unbelievable because they took the mortgage, because of the program that they created back then, I qualified. So the president's office didn't tell them what to do. They just said do something to help. And Obama was big on helping veterans. And at the time, because he had just created a modification program for veterans, I qualified, and thank goodness it worked out. But I've done stuff like that. It's contacted the VA to help my husband with his health issues, and I have helped my cousin with her immigration issues, like because there was some slowness, and they needed something expedited for their case, and it works. So I really want to encourage people to use it, not just for what's going on right now, because right now everybody's like, oh, we got to call and we got to demand this and that. It's like, yeah, but don't just do it for right now. Always get the help that you need, because they exist there to apply pressure for these organizations to do something. Even if the outcome doesn't turn out to be something you like, there's something being done. And another thing that I learned too is when you inquire into something, let's say you're helping your grandfather with Social Security and it's taking forever. What happens when you request help to maybe expedite it or just to get answers? Because sometimes these departments don't give you answers for months and months and months. But when a senator or congressperson inquires, they kind of like move that file from the very bottom all the way to the top because they have to look into it, and then that moves things along. It's kind of like a way that I've used to expedite certain things for people.
That's
So keep
awesome.
that.
Like bumping a post.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy because I just happened to find, like, after the third time that happened, I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I wish more people knew about it because some people are so stressed out waiting for something, an answer from a department. Even my sister-in-law, uh she's been waiting over a year for child support to get back to her.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, because my brother's like not paying, which is crazy. So I told her, like, just call a legislator, ask them to get the Department of Child Support Services
Yeah.
in California to give you an answer. She doesn't know anything about what the holdup is, because these phone lines take forever, email, nobody responds. These departments are overwhelmed, so that's a way to get an answer at least. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
um, any questions? I know I've been going on and on and on.
No, it's fascinating. I mean, like I said, like everyone's saying you need to do this, you need to do that, and you need to, do all the protests and do all the letters and call everyone and just like I have a full-time job. I just need to know like the most straightforward way to be part of the solution and
Hmm.
um
Yeah,
just hard to know
absolutely.
when everyone's got their
Right,
own
right.
opinion.
Yeah, it is. And like, I appreciate that people who call or write, because it helps. Even if it's something that I don't agree with, whatever it is they're asking, at least it's something just to give them an idea, because they are working for us. So they need to hear what we need to, what we want. So yeah, keeping
Totally.
it very 2 to 3 minutes if it's on the phone. Also state your name, location, because a lot of times they'll want to know if you're a constituent. That means that you're in within that district, and why you're calling. And one of the things I've also learned, because I remember I called like Senator McCain's office, this was obviously years ago, and the aide was like, okay, so are you from the district? And I knew that they don't really like to pay attention to you if you're not from the district. So I was
You
like
just say yes.
avoiding the answer. So I was like, look, I just want to express my my thoughts on this, and this is what I think is,
Don't make me
and
lie. Don't make me lie to you.
I know, right? Because they'll actually ask for your zip code. So yeah, at the time, and luckily at the time I knew like my sister's zip code. She lives in Scottsdale. So that's what I did. But I was like, ah, the nerve! How dare you? I just want to voice my opinion. So if it's not a representative of yours, what I've learned is it's better to email or send in the letter. Yeah. And also always request a specific course of action to vote for or against this bill or whatever. I remember I also have called the ethics committee,
Mm.
because they're supposed to look into certain things. And the first time I actually called them was during Trump's first election. And I think that they were very, very pro-Trump because they were like, whatever, very dismissive. But I called and, me and a whole bunch of people, like we had a little call bank going, because we were so
Hmm.
passionate about what's going on back then. So, but yeah, I like your comment, Amy. Amy Harrington's on here, and she said it's great to have a script prepared, like you suggested, before you call. Yeah, it does make it like less scary, and the more you do it, the easier it gets, she says. And she says, I hate making calls like that, but now that I have done it a bunch of times, I don't mind at all. Yeah, you kind of get numb to it because you're like, you know what it's like. And also, these are just staffers. These are sometimes college students that are just doing this, or they're trying to get in the door with a political career, and that's their job, is to listen to you. And even if they are not very nice, they have to listen to you. Um, so yeah, so keeping it 2 to 3 minutes, clear, state your name, location, why you're calling. As for the legislator's stance on the issue too, that's really important because, it helps
Right.
you
Who are they
understand.
going to support? What are they in support of?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
request a specific course of action. Another thing too is sign up for their newsletter. That way you stay informed. And also they always announce town hall meetings. They do them virtually and in person. So that's always great. And you can actually speak there too in person. And those are usually more powerful because they're smaller, of course, smaller groups. And they're within your city. I remember when I was in California, Congressman Takano was the one for my area, and he held them every 3 months. And I loved it because he would, because of where I worked, he would actually come into our building because we're contractors to the government. And so it was important for him to come to us because there was always a threat of cutting, of like ending the contract. And it was very essential to that area because of the job force. So those were really, really good to attend. So that's another way that you can voice your opinion. And I'll just, those, like always, they're limited with how much time you can speak because there's usually a lot of people that want to speak. But that's also another avenue you can take. I'm going to go ahead and continue to share the screen here. So let's see, there we go. So the type of requests, just gonna go through that again. Legislative and policy requests, local community and infrastructure requests. So like, um, say a a stoplight that's needed in a certain area, or that if you notice there's a lot of accidents or a lot of kids getting hit at the bus stop because it's just located in a pretty bad area. Local community issues like maybe too much trash and there's not enough cleanup and it's just making it. very, unpleasant to live there. It's given it maybe just this look of like people can come over here and just keep destroying the area, consumer protection, that too, like um credit card abuse, like maybe there's a collector that is not following the laws and they're calling you at like middle of the night, whatever. Economic concerns like um the budget for the city garbage, because sometimes the cities take care of it, or how much the taxes are going up for properties, that too, because sometimes they'll increase them by like maybe $1 or two, but then they do that every so often and it accumulates and people think it's not a big deal. But if you look at the scope of like 12 months or 24 months, and it goes up significantly. Or like here in Maryland, we have BGE for gas and electric, and the rates go up, feels like every 3 months. And so people write in and they're like, stop it, because they had some kind of agreement that it would allow them to increase the rate. So you can write in about that. Of course, civil rights and social justice requests, like if especially when things hit home, like real close, if you know that something happened, write in about it and request a solution, be exact about it. Maybe it's harsh punishment that you want on the perpetrator. So maybe it's, like certain businesses keep closing their doors to only a certain group of people. Um, Also, the personal assistance request, which I give you the two examples of how I've used it, and emergency and crisis response requests. So here, and I think that overall Maryland is great with keeping roads clean, especially like when it snows or when there's like threats of floods and stuff. So, but I know that other areas or other cities or states are not. So if that's a concern, write in about that too, like ask for questions. Why are they not providing this type of service to keep the community safe? So, um, those are the type of examples, but just stuff that you can write in. So again, I want to reiterate, be clear, concise, and to the point. If you can provide a real story, please provide it, especially if it's in writing. Never attack. Even if they do not agree with you, never attack. That is the quickest way that they're just going to keep on walking and dismiss you. And that's not the goal here. The goal here is to engage, in my opinion, to engage with those who don't agree with you. Because sometimes they're just, if they keep hearing from the people who support their their point, or their whatever they're supporting, they're not going to understand why it is so important for others, for them to not support a certain bill, right? Like you can't be just you can't hear one side, because I think that's dangerous. As humans, like this is something that the public does. They'll only listen to, and I'm just going to give examples, okay? Like CNN or Fox. Each one has its own bias. So if you continue to listen to just one of those, you're never going to understand the opposite party and their ideas and where they're coming from. And so if I want to convince a senator or congressman to please allow women to have access to birth control, like I'm cool. Like I know that my representatives are for it, so I need to address the ones that are voting against it, to try to make them understand how important this is and how needed it is. And maybe they will eventually change their mind. And it does happen. It definitely does happen. But I think a lot of people always go to their representative that already agrees. Let's also reach out to the ones that don't agree, please. I think that's actually even more important. And then just keep the conversation going. One of the things that happened with me is that because I requested a lot of help over the years, um, the aides actually knew who I was. And like I would bump into them like at like resource fairs in the community. And they were like, hey, how are you doing? And I actually even applied for a job at their office. And I remember I went in And he sat down with me. He's like, "Hey, Dali, how are you? How's your husband? Blah, blah, blah." He's like, "Dali, do you have children? I believe I've seen you around with kids." I'm like, "Yeah, you know." He's like, "You don't want this job." He was like, "This is a 24/7, you will lose your family type of job." And he's like, "I'm just being so honest. Like, if you really want it, okay, but I'm telling you, this is not for somebody with a family, especially when the kids are little." And I was very grateful for that. And I don't think that he would have said that to me had he not already established like who I was. You know, we had spoken many times, we had seen each other just in passing many times. So it was all just because I was always inquiring about certain things or requesting help with something. So keep that conversation going. And it's okay to actually build a relationship with the staffers, or with the politician. It's totally okay. Nothing wrong with that. And remember, they're human too. So, you know, if you do end up building up that relationship, don't be afraid to just ask him, "Hey, how are you doing?" Like at a human level, not just as a politician. And it's pretty cool when you get there because they'll always be more likely to listen to you since you've established that rapport. And then, so what do you do afterwards? You follow up, and then you share your experience with others. You stay up to date, subscribe to the newsletter, and always please reach out to your local, state, and federal representatives, not just the federal. I think a lot of people think of federal. They kind of remember about the state legislators, and then they rarely go down to the local level. Like I subscribe to my city newsletter, and I see that they have their meetings every month, and there's an invitation there, and people don't show up. And then when things get passed, people complain. They're like, "Why didn't we know this?" It's like, because you're not actively trying to get involved. You underestimate the power of the local politicians, and that is what I think what impacts you the most. So please don't forget about them. If you don't know how to reach out to them, contact your city, the the city. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the word. But contact your city. There's a term for the office, but there's also there's a website, or contact the county. It's really cool to like learn um, that they have a certain sense of certain things. Like for example, here in Harvard County, I learned that when it comes to divorces, the majority of the courts prefer couples to not go to trial. They will give them a pre-trial as an opportunity for them to settle their stuff because they really don't want to go to trial. All of the judges feel that way. And I wouldn't know that because I'm going through a divorce, so that's how I learned, but also talking to them and talk to the clerks. You know, you can learn so much with just talking to the staff that help them. And it can be an advantage. So um, yeah, so remember, more calls and letters received, the more pressure that legislators will feel. If you listen to some of their stories as to why they initiated the writing of a certain bill, they'll always you'll hear that they felt the pressure, that they got so many phone calls, and that's why they pushed this certain bill up to the front. And otherwise, like the ones that they don't hear much about, they get held back. They'll always prioritize something else to make it to the floor for votes. So if you put enough pressure on them, if they get enough letters and calls, they'll be more likely to push that forward. There are so many bills like the ERA, which is something that I'm very passionate about, the Equal Rights Amendment. That has been put on the back burner for so long because not a lot of people are demanding it. Right now, anything to do with the economy is a priority. So that'll make it to the floor. Pressure has pushed some things forward. So let's use the pressure. Let's put it on there and um, see what happens. And remember, the outcome might not be what you want, but at least you'll feel good that you've said something and that you've tried. So remember, this is a quote. I think it was, oh my gosh, I'm not even gonna say it because I think I'm wrong. But there was a very powerful activist that said this. If you're, I think it was James Baldwin. I might be wrong, but it said if your voice didn't matter, they would not be trying to take it away from you. So always remember that and just share, even if it's once a week or once a month, just whatever you can do. And not only do it yourself, but encourage others to do it. Encourage friends and family members. So that's the short version of it. I know it was kind of a lot, but I have some scripts that I want to provide you. So if you want copies of those, I can go ahead and send them to you. Just post your email in the chat. And then feel free to share them too with as many people as you can. Um, and if you have any more follow-up questions, maybe like later, because I know this was a lot of information. But if you're sitting there trying to build up the courage to call or email, send me an email, or if I'm on social media and you follow me, DM me and I'll go ahead and help as much as you can. I'll even review some of it if you want me to, because sometimes we feel very nervous, especially the first timers. So I'm here for you. Yeah. Any questions? Okay, great. Thank you so much for attending this. Share if you watch the replay, please let me know what you think too. Um, and that's all. I guess I'll see you in the Passionistas circle. We'll be having our chats and Thursday thoughts and all that good stuff.